Study Unit 4. This presentation covers causal research designs and test markets. In this presentation, you will learn the variables used in experimental research designs, the three major types of experimental designs in marketing research, the pros and cons of using causal designs, what test markets are, the importance and difficulties of executing test markets, and how the resulting data structures of test markets are used by researchers and marketing practitioners. Causal research or experiments can identify cause and effect relationships between variables and constructs. Variable is an observable and measurable elements or attributes of an object or an event. For example, demographics, attitudes, and behavior. There are four generic types of variables in experimental designs: independent variable, dependent variable, control variables, and extraneous variables. Independent variables are values that are manipulated by the researcher, while dependent variables are measures of effects or outcomes. Control variables are conditions that make the design of a true experiment, and extraneous variables are uncontrolled, unmeasured variables that may affect the dependent variable. Theories refers to a large body of interconnected propositions about how some portions of a certain phenomenon operates. It underpins the development of hypotheses about relationships. That is, theory helps to explain and predict relationships. There are two types of experimental research: deductive experimental research and inductive experimental research. Deductive research refers to experimental methods that are undertaken to test hypothesized relationships, while inductive research is an investigation that uses causal design procedures to generate and test hypotheses that creates new theories or extends existing theories. Experimental research is an empirical investigation that tests for hypothesized relationships between dependent variables and manipulated independent variables. There are two broad types: laboratory experiments and field experiments. Field experiments are causal research designs that manipulate the independent variables in order to measure the dependent variable in a natural setting, while laboratory experiments are causal research designs that are conducted in an artificial setting and have high internal validity but limited external validity. To understand experimental research, we must first examine validity issues that directly affect research designs. Validity is the extent to which the research design accurately identifies causal relationships. In other words, do the differences in the dependent variables found through experimental manipulations of the independent variables really reflect a cause and effect relationship? Internal validity refers to the extent to which the research design accurately identifies causal relationships. Internal validity exists when the researcher can rule out other explanations for the observed conclusion about the functional relationship, while external validity refers to the extent in which a causal relationship found in a study can be expected to be true for the target population. There are a number of threats to internal validity due to history, maturation, testing, instrumentation, selection bias, statistical regression, mortality, and ambiguity. There are also a number of threats to external validity due to treatment versus treatment, when test subjects in different treatment groups are exposed to different amount of manipulations. Treatment versus testing. When a pre-measurement process sensitizes test subjects to respond in an abnormal manner to treatment manipulations. Treatment versus selection. Generalizing the results to other categories of people beyond those types used in the experiment. Treatment versus setting. Generalizing the results to other environments beyond the one used in the experiment. Lastly, treatment versus history. Using the existing functional relationship to predict future phenomenon outcomes. There are three types of experimental designs: pre-experiment, true experiments, and quasi-experiments. To facilitate the understanding of different types of experimental designs, we will use the following set of symbols. X represents the exposure of an independent variable, treatment manipulation, to a group of test subjects to which the effects are to be determined. O represents the process of observation or measurement of the dependent variable outcome on the test subjects. R represents the random assignment of test subjects to different treatment groups. EG represents the experimental group of testing subjects, and CG represents the control group of test subjects. An arrow represents a movement through time, normally displayed as left-to-right movement. There are three types of pre-experimental designs, including one-shot study, one group pre-test post-test, and study group comparison. In one-shot study, there's only one group, the experimental group. There's one manipulation and one observation after the manipulation. In one group pre-test post-test study, there's also only one group of experimental group. There are two observations, one before the manipulation and one after the manipulation. Under static group comparison, there are two groups, the experimental group and the control group. In the experimental group, there will be a manipulation and an observation after the manipulation, while in the control group, there will be only one observation. True experimental designs are the only experimental designs with random assignment. There are three main types of true experimental designs: pre-test, post-test control group designs, post-test only control group designs, and Solomon four-group designs. Under the pre-test, post-test control group designs, there are two groups. Within each group, there are two observations. While in the experimental group, there will be one observation before the treatment and one observation after the treatment. For post-test only control group, for both experimental group and the control group, there will be only one observation. For the experimental group, the observation happens after the treatment. For Solomon four groups design, there are both experimental groups and control groups. Under design 1, there could be two observations for each group, and under design 2, there will be only one observation under each group. Under quasi-experimental designs, there are non-equivalent control group design and separate sample pre-test post-test design. There are no random assignment involved in quasi-experimental designs. Field experiments are causal research designs that manipulate the independent variables in order to measure the dependent variable in a natural setting of the test. It could be conducted in retail environments. The settings tend to create a high level of realism. The major considerations for using field experiments include time frames, costs, and competitive reactions. Test marketing are controlled field experiments conducted in a limited market area on specific market performance indicators. Under traditional test markets, product and/or products marketing mix variables are tested through existing distribution channels. The limitations include cost, time, and exposure to competition. Controlled test market is performed by an outside firm which guarantees distribution of the test product through limited pre-specified outlets in selected cities. The advantages include distribution assumed by an outside firm, less cost, and competitive monitoring more difficult. The limitations are limited markets make sales projection difficult, trade support unclear, and proposed advertising program difficult to evaluate. Under electronic test markets, the subject must use an electronic identification card and measures test product service purchase results using the UCP scanner data. The advantage is that demographic data on consumers who purchase the test product is available, while the limitations include test consumers may not be representative of the entire market because they are not selected at random, and high cost. Simulated test markets use computer models to estimate consumer responses to a new marketing program. The advantages include saving in cost and time, can predict trial rate, repurchase rate, and purchase cycle, allowing for several alternative marketing mix plans, and exposure to competition minimized. While the limitations include trade acceptance might not be measured, and broad-based consumer reaction cannot be measured. Test markets among consumers can be done through web-enabled television technology. The advantages include it is a popular medium for entertainment. The testing can be done in comfort of own home. The interactive format for instant results, and the material delivered in a digital format. The limitations include the slow demand for ITV technology. Consumers are anxious. ITV is an extra and prohibitive expense, and technology is difficult to sell to companies. Viral test markets is a high-tech driven field experiment that allows the subjects to manipulate different aspects of the test environment on a computer screen. The advantages include capacity to have its own store closely resemble actual stores, can make changes in store quickly, can be used for different purposes, and limited exposure to competition. While the limitations include using same shopping patterns, cost of computer and hardware, and cannot actually experience the product. To summarize, in a typical experiment, the independent variable is manipulated and its effect on dependent variable is measured and evaluated. Test markets are a specific type of field experiment commonly conducted in natural field experiments. Reflection question. Identify the variables a consumer will consider when purchasing a computer.